All right, everybody hopefully can see my screen all right. If you can't, something let me know. If not, I'm going to get started. All right, everybody, welcome to the 2026 MAC League Coaches Meeting for the Minors Division. We're going to go through all of the different parts of the Minors program. I do encourage you to ask questions as we go along. If you don't feel like asking questions as we go, you can feel free to ask questions at the
I
end.
think this somebody.
I will take time at the end in order to answer questions that people might have. Also, feel free to put something in the chat. If I catch it, I'll try to comment on it as I'm going through the presentation. But we'll do a presentation followed by the walkthrough of the website showing you how everything is going to work, how you put in your scores, pitch counts, all those fun things. All right, so let's get rolling. All right, real quickly, here's just a quick view of all the different towns that are in the MAC program. Every town has a program in minors, which is awesome. And we'll go through real quick. The MAC League will be hosting summer and fall seasons. So if you have players that are looking to play this summer and this fall, reach out to your league directors. They should be opening up registrations anytime. The the rules for summer and fall are identical to that of our spring season, so that players don't get confused. They have consistency across all three seasons. And heads up, in summer and fall, we do have other towns that are playing in our program. Typically, we see towns like Westford, sometimes Acton Boxborough. We've heard Concord Carlisle might come in this summer. So we get lots more opportunities to see different programs. All right. Some important dates for you. The season will begin on April 27th. You should all have your schedules now. If your league hasn't given you your schedule, it's been posted on the MAC site and you can go find everything there. Season will run through June 7th. That's when all games and makeups must be completed by. Our single elimination playoffs will start on Monday, June 8th. So make sure you're aware of that. We will start right away on Monday the 8th for the minors division. It will go for up to 2 weeks. Minors typically goes schedule wise through, it goes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday. So with one day in between each game and the weekend off, in theory. So it all depends on how things go, how the weather goes, all those fun things. We will have our All-Star games on June 20th. We'll talk about those in a minute. Weekday games do start at 5:45. Your weekend games will be starting at either 3 or 5:45. There are some towns that have moved those games a little bit earlier in the day, but at least the base schedule as it came out was those were the times. Speaking of All-Star games, for this year, for minors, we have two games. We have the Minors North versus the Minors West, and the Minors South versus the Minors East. The North versus West will be held in Pepperell, and the South versus East will be held in Maynard Stowe. Each team the number of players each team will send will be based on the end of season seeding. Each team will send one coach, and the top seeds will be the head coaches of the All-Star games. Players that are selected do not need to be the most talented players. Each town can select their own criteria. These all-star games, they could also be just called recognition games. These are when we recognize players for whatever criteria the coaches come up with. It might be most talented, it might be, best attendance, it might be best effort, it might be, most improvement. Whatever the coach in your local town determines as your requirements, those are what you can pick on. So don't just assume that it's always the most talented kids. I do recommend that if you decide that you're going to pick your own kid to be on the All-Star team, that before you announce it, you have a good email written up to all your parents announcing your players and exactly why you picked every one of the kids, especially if one of them is yours. It will save you a lot of headache. It will save your league directors a lot of headache, and it will save me a lot of headache when they escalate all the way up the line and call it daddy ball. So do your best and cut all that off. It'll save everybody all sorts of headaches. All right, moving down. As far as the MAC rules go, we'll go through a bunch of the rules throughout the presentation, but if you're looking for the rules, here's where all the links are. The general rules, these are more of your administrative rules, not ones that you typically need at the field. The minors rules, those are your gameplay rules, all the ones that how the game runs. We have a separate thing for the MAC playoff rules, and there were some significant changes there this year, so we'll go through those as well. All of these are rules that are placed on top of the Babe Ruth rules. So if a rule is not specifically called out in the MAC rules, it falls back to whatever is in the Babe Ruth rule book. So make sure you know that and make sure you have a copy of the Babe Ruth rule book if you don't. So just a few notes as far as rule clarifications go. During the season, if the MAC board feels that a rule needs to be changed or clarified, we will be announced in email to all coaches, and the rule pages will be updated right away. We don't like to make rule changes during the season. However, sometimes we have to make clarifications and explaining a rule better that wasn't explained well in the first place. So we do that fairly frequently, but hopefully that just makes things to better explain a rule. We have had to make rule changes in the midseason. We don't like to do that, but sometimes it does have to happen. So keep an eye on your email throughout the season. That way you don't get caught off guard when you show up to the field if there's a change. All right. 2026 rule changes. So there's a handful of rule changes for 2026. These are some of the things just to draw your attention. One thing in particular, once the schedule is released, if a team is unable to play on that date, they can work with the other coach to propose a new date. In the event that the two coaches cannot reach upon an agreed date, the original date will stand, and if the team cannot play on that date, they would be required to forfeit the game. So just keep that in mind that whatever the schedule is that came out, that's the master schedule. If you change it, that's great. But if both coaches can't agree, then the original date is going to stand. The other change for this year is towns are allowed and recommended to use the double safety first base bag. This will be required come spring of 2027. Why are we doing this? Because this is now a requirement for high school programs across the country, and we need our players at the lower levels to be ready for something different at the high school level. So that's why we're going to give all the programs a year to get the bags and potentially get their field set up to be able to support those bags. So you will start seeing them show up this year across the different programs. The next new rule that, while not my favorite rule, this is a rule that was put in by Babe Ruth for this year, which is at the start of extra innings. At the start of any extra innings, a runner is now automatically placed on second base. The runner will be the last recorded batter of the previous inning. So this is not something that the MAC decided to do. That is something that the Babe Ruth added as a rule. Going down, you can use solid one-piece bats. Technically, we've always allowed this, but it was never specifically written in the rules. So there was questions that came up last year, so we wanted to specifically add it to the rules so everybody knows that if someone does want to use a wood bat, they are allowed. And then finally, there are significant rule changes to the playoffs for this year, so we will go through those once we do the walkthrough on the website, and I'll walk through those rule changes. All right, moving down. Player participation. Teams need to field at least 8 players within 15 minutes, or they're going to need to forfeit. If you do have to enter a forfeit, it will be marked as a 6-0 victory for the non-forfeiting team. Teams in the minors can call up from rookie division. You can't do cross callovers, which means you can't call from your town's other minors programs. It has to come from a rookies team.
Join the meeting.
Okay. Call-ups are allowed to pitch. However, their pitch counts get counted against their original team, which for this level are going to be irrelevant, only because the rookies don't worry pitch counts. So you should be okay in that regard. Call-ups, they're supposed to be placed at the bottom of your order. They are meant as the ability so that you can have a game not to make your team better, okay? And when you have a call-up on your team, they should never be given priority over one of your rostered players. So this means if you call up players to get to 10, and you only need 10 would be, everybody plays 10 on the field, so that should be irrelevant for this division. So because you can't call up more than 10. So yeah, that should be good there. Games and scoring, no new innings can be started after 2 hours after the official start. Note that the official start is what's determined by the umpire, not whatever's on the schedule. That means if your game starts 10 minutes early, which I highly recommend you start your games as soon as you possibly can. You can start your game 10, 15 minutes early in the season, definitely do that. Um, but whatever that game start is, whatever the umpire records as that game start, that will be the official start, and that's when the 2 hour window kicks in. The umpire, in collaboration with the two head coaches, make the call to stop play before the time limit due to weather or darkness. I do recommend that as soon as it starts getting kind of close to darkness, start having those conversations early, especially if you're in a situation where your games are taking 40 minutes to get through an inning. Now, it gets very dark very fast all of a sudden, and the worst thing that happens is you have to kill the game in the middle of an inning, and then you have to roll the score back to the last inning. That can burn a lot of teams, especially teams that may have come back and took the lead in that half inning that got canceled, and then it would roll back and the other team wins. So just make sure you can get those last innings in before you start an inning that might be close. Umpires, make sure you pay them before the game starts, and you need to provide them at least two fresh game balls. Minors is a 4-run max, except for the sixth or last inning, which is unlimited runs. Continuing on with the scoring, the mercy rule for minors at the end of the third inning, if one team has a lead of 12 runs, at the end of the fourth inning, at the end of the fourth or top of the fourth, if the home team is ahead, one team has a lead of 8 runs or more. And then during that fourth inning, if the home team goes up by 8 runs, the game is immediately conceded. In the event that a mercy, the game should continue to its natural end with a 2-run max per inning. However, the game is technically over, and whoever won at the mercy is marked, and any pitching after the mercy rule is still reported on the max site. Both teams report game results on the max site within 24 hours. I do highly recommend that when the game is over and you're sitting in the parking lot getting ready to leave, that you go onto the website on your phone and just put in the score and your pitch counts. It will save everybody a whole lot of hassle. We won't have to go chasing you because that's a pain in the ass, and I prefer not to have to do it. So sit in the parking lot right before you leave, punch in the score and your pitch counts, and everybody will be happy. Moving along. Anybody have any questions to this point? Great. All right, moving along. Games not played. So games should only be rescheduled due to weather, not lack of players or coaches conflict. Definitely not for travel/AAU games. Okay? We do play Monday through Saturday in this league. So make sure you're aware of that and make sure you've got players and that they're available for your games. Okay. Rainouts should be rescheduled as close to the original date as possible. So if you have to do a rainout, make sure you try to reschedule that game within 2 to 3 days at most. We had a lot of times last year where people canceled a game because of weather, and then they just didn't bother rescheduling it till the very end of the season. And then they had 4 games back to back in the last week. They didn't have any pitchers because you can't pitch 2 days in a row, and it ended up being all sorts of a nightmare. I will say, as far as the weather goes, remember to tell all of your players, all of your parents, we play games in the rain. If it is light to moderate rain, you should be playing. Kids like to play in the rain. It's fun for them. Play in the rain. You know, this is New England. Weather is awful here. You know, if you cancel just because the forecast says you're going to have rain, you'll never get any games in. I promise. So do your best, play the games, and be great with that. If you are going to cancel a game, you can't do it more than 2 hours before the prior to the game time. Why do we say you can't do it more than 2 hours? Because this is weather in New England, and just because it's been pouring all day does not mean the field's not going to be bright, sunny, and clear at 5:30. So make sure you wait as long as you possibly can in order to schedule that cancel that game. Games are official after 4 innings or 3.5 if the home team's ahead. Games, if they postpone before the end of the first inning, they get completely restarted. If they are postponed after the second inning, but not official. They get resumed as of the stoppage of play. That means that everybody will go exactly back to where they were at when the game got postponed. If there was 2 runners at base, they would go back to those bases. If it was 2 balls and 3 strikes and the pitcher's at 34 pitches, that's exactly what you go back to. Exactly as it was is exactly how you pick it up. The last thing to note is if lightning occurs, there's a 15-minute delay. I really want to make sure that everyone understands that you tell your parents when there is a lightning delay that is not a game cancellation. It's really important that they understand this because potentially in 15 minutes or 30 minutes, if it still gets delayed and that game gets rescheduled and the game gets back underway, if you do not have enough players when the game gets back underway, you will forfeit the game. So make sure you tell your parents when there's a rain delay or a weather delay to not leave. They shouldn't leave until you give them the all clear to leave. Because like I said, if it restarts and you don't have enough players, you're going to be in a situation where you had to forfeit. So hopefully you don't get to that situation. All right, pitching. So pitching is tracked by pitch counts. We don't use innings pitched anymore, haven't in quite a few years. We use the MLB Pitch Smart guidelines to dictate how many pitches the players can use. This is minors, so we have the chart here of what the pitch counts are going to be, the daily max, and all the rest days. So I'm going to give you an example here. If a player throws 36 pitches on Tuesday, they will not be allowed to pitch again until Friday because Wednesday and Thursdays are the 2 rest days. Okay. So 2 very common questions I always get asked is you cannot finish a batter and go into the next day's rest category. If your pitcher is at 35 pitches in the middle of an at-bat, pull them out because if they go to 36, they now have 2 days rest instead of 1. This is a very, very common question. So make sure you understand it, even though you're going to email me later and say, hey, is this allowed? It is not. So when can you finish a batter? The only time you can finish a batter is when you hit your daily max pitches for the day. So the daily max in minors is 75. If they hit 75 during the at-bat for a batter, they can finish that batter. Reason for that is because it doesn't change the number of days rest. It's going to be 4 days rest if they hit all the way up to their daily max. Okay. Any questions on this before I move forward? All right. Just so you guys are aware, minors is usually the most talkative group and never stop asking questions. So feel free to do that. So I've actually booked this one a little bit longer than the other ones. All right, moving on. Some more stuff on pitching. So pitches need to be tracked, preferably using a smartphone app, or you could use a manual pitch counter if you want. I will say I strongly recommend the smartphone apps, specifically Game Changer. If in the event that there is a conflict because you decided you didn't want to use Game Changer and you're using a pitch counter, the person who had Game Changer, their stats are going to take precedent over whatever you come up with. So make sure that between innings, if you're doing it manually, that you're talking with the other coach and you guys stay in sync. So you will get bit in the butt on this one. So just keep that in mind. You should have a pre-game meeting with the umpire and let them know any ineligible pitchers. So you should be tracking pitch counts on both your team as well as the opposing team. So keep that in mind. I know it's a little bit more difficult when you're doing the manual pitch counter, but it's definitely something you should be doing. As I mentioned earlier about the scores, within 24 hours, preferably in the parking lot right after the game. Enter them on the max site. New pitchers, they get 6 warm-up throws. Returning pitchers get 4. Remember, this is 6 and 4. Okay, these are not big numbers, and this is as long as you should be taking between innings. So we should be moving quickly between innings, especially at the beginning of the season. It's going to get dark early, especially depending on what field you're at. If you're at Craven Field here in Townsend, it's going to get dark, bam, all of a sudden, really fast and really early. So the faster you can get through the game, the better. So just keep that in mind. Some fields get darker quicker than others. If your pitcher beans 4 players in the game, they got to be removed as a pitcher. They can stay in the game. They still bat. They can still play other positions. They just can't pitch anymore. Okay? You are allowed 1 mound visit per inning. If you have to go to the mound a second time, it's going to be to remove the pitcher. Okay? All right. As we move on to batting. So on-deck batters are allowed behind the third or fourth base coaches on some fields or outside. Or outside the field, outside the dugout. It's going to be up to the particular facility that you're at. Good example, my field, Craven in Townsend, you cannot do on deck on the field. Not allowed. Make sure they're outside the fenced-in area for on deck. Players have to be using a USA bat, certified USA bat. They can't be using a BBCOR. They can't be using a USSA bat. Be very careful if you've got kids that are playing travel ball or AAU. They very possibly have a USSA bat. If they have these USSA bats, do not let them use those bats on our fields. Those bats have a much harder pop coming off of a pitch, and that's rec kids are not necessarily prepared for the speed that those balls are going to be coming off of that. Another thing to note, batter has contact with the ball. When their foot is outside the batter's box, they will be called out. So make sure they realize that where they're standing, they should be inside the batter's box. Important thing to note here, any player that throws a bat or helmet with malice will be given a warning for their first offense. Second offense will be an ejection from the game, and an umpire can eject in the first offense if it's egregious enough in their opinion. So keep this in mind. If your kid is pissed off and he strikes out, takes his helmet and hucks it at the dugout, he's going to get a warning. If he hucks it at the dugout and there was another player in that vicinity, he's likely to get ejected. So try to keep your players under control. It happens more often than you like to think. So just keep that in mind. Umpires are also going to notice if they go inside the dugout and then chuck their helmet from one side of the dugout to the other side of the dugout. Same thing. So just make sure you keep your players calm and during these events. All right. Some updates on base running. So there is no limit on how many bases your runner may advance on error. I have to double check that. That might be a majors rule, but we'll take a look at that. There is a no contact rule. You do have to slide or avoid. It is mandatory to slide when there's going to be a place at that plate at a base. If they do not slide, they will get called out. So make sure that they slide. There's no head first sliding in minors except when returning to a base. So if they're going backwards, they can head first slide. If they're going forward, they cannot head first slide. There's no leading in minors, and there's no box in minors. Additionally, there's no infield flies, there's no drop third strikes. None of those things are available or around in the minors program. So as far as players taking their secondary leads after the pitch gets thrown, nothing happens until the ball crosses the plate. So they can't leave before the ball crosses the plate. They can't take a secondary, those jump offs until the ball crosses the plate. If there are 2 outs, a courtesy runner can be used for a catcher so that they can get ready for the next inning. We strongly recommend you do this. So that person is going to be the person who made the last out is the required courtesy runner. So you can't just pick your speed demon. It's whoever is the last person to make an out. Again, a goal is to try to get these games in. So the sooner you can get your catchers ready, the better. The catcher is usually the biggest delay between innings. So do whatever you can to get that moved as quick as you can. Base stealing, it is a little bit of a modified format. An unlimited number of steals is allowed in each inning. An individual player may steal more than one base in an inning, but not more than one per play per runner. Okay. So you can't steal from first to third. You can steal from first to second. On the next play, they could go from second to third. A player may not advance to another base on a catching overthrow. So keep the reason for this. This is the overthrow error that does not get extra bases. The reason for this is we want catchers to be able to throw down to their play to try to throw somebody out at second or third. It's minors is designed to teach catchers how to do that, and there's no penalty for them trying. So even if they think they're not going to make it, have them throw the ball, have them try to make the throw. It's how you teach them. The more they do it, the better they'll get at it. So, like I said, if they chuck the ball to them and they overthrow it, don't reach it, doesn't matter. It's going to be no extra bases awarded.
Hey, Keith, one question. What if the runner's going from second to third and it's overthrown to third? Can they run home or are they stuck at third?
Is it a steal or is it a...
Yeah, no, if they're stealing from second to third, we'll say, and it's thrown to third base and it's overthrown, are they able to go back home or run to home, or they get stuck at third?
If it's a steal, they can keep, it's an overthrow, they can keep going. If it's, or
that's only from first to second.
No. Hold on. I'm trying to run this scenario in my head for a second. No, a steal from first to second or second to third, and the catcher's trying to throw them out on the steal. There's no extra base. So whether it's second or third, if it's a steal, they're frozen on that base.
Okay, yeah. So it's just to promote the catcher to try and throw them out.
Correct. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Sorry. All right. Players are allowed to steal home on either a pass ball or a wild pitch, and it's allowed up to 2 times per inning per team. So we do allow that. Runners can attempt to steal after the base passes home plate. So this is, like I was saying earlier, they can't leave until the ball passes home plate. If they leave early, the umpire will send them back. There are no delayed steals in minors. So once the runner has stopped forward movement, they must return to the previous base. So keep this in mind. The moment they stop, you've got to turn around and go back. All right. Umpires. Umpires are to be scheduled by the home team. If you have unpatched umpires, they're going to be paid $30 each. If it's one unpatched umpire, it's going to be paid $40. And if you have one patched umpire, it'll be paid $60. Your local league should tell you what that person is going to get paid per game. If you have unpatched umpires, do your best to help them to ensure the game is run smoothly. It's not going to get run smoothly. So if you have unpatched umpires, especially if you have a 12-year-old trying to ump, they're going to be learning. So just be careful with that. Unpatched umpires must do their best to remain unbiased. So they shouldn't be wearing clothing, hats to support one team over another. We used to see this a lot. Seems to have gone away lately, so hopefully that's no longer an issue. As I mentioned earlier, pay your umpires before the game, and you as the coach need to notify your umpires if you have any schedule changes. So just because you put a change in on the website doesn't mean the umpire got notified. So you need to go tell them you made a change.
Question.
Fire away.
Sorry, Tom Woodward with the Lunenburg. Question for you. How often are there unpatched umpires for minors?
It all depends on your program. So I know in my town, I try to not use any unless it's really needed. Some towns use all unpatched umpires. I think like if you go to Groton, I think it's all you're going to get is unpatched umpires in minors.
Is that including playoffs too?
No. So playoffs, it has to be a patched umpire. Only the regular season is non-patched.
Is that like that in majors also? Is that like that all through the league with unpatched umpires, like if they're choosing at their discretion?
For minors only.
Okay.
Anything above minors is patched only. But in minors, because there's such a shortage of umpires, that's what we get.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I know it's not ideal. And I tried hard in my town to make sure we don't have unpatched umpires, but
And there's no age requirement, like you said, a 12-year-old can ump a game.
12 is the minimum age for a junior umpire.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
That's just a little crazy, but it's all right. I understand.
Yeah, and they're brutal, not gonna lie. It is brutal to get a 12, 13, 14-year-old that are umpiring. So it's part of the thing. I usually try to have unpatched umpires for summer and fall ball, and I try to avoid using them in the spring, but that's not always a possibility depending on what you have available for umpires. So, all right. The last note on here is during the playoffs. So for a couple of different things, the championship game and the semifinal games are going to require 2 patched umpires, and they're going to get paid the same rate as the regular season. All other tournament games will require 1 patched umpire. Big note for the playoffs, and please everybody remember this: both coaches, the home team and the away team, bring half the cost of the umpires to every game. So remember that. So if you're traveling for your playoff game, make sure you, as the head coach, has money in your pocket to pay that umpire, because you're going to be responsible and they're going to be looking for you to pay half the bill. So we have this happen every year where someone says, I didn't know that, even though it says it in the rules and we talk about it here, and they show up without money and they go, sorry. And then we end up having to chase people, and people have to pay. Some random parent has to pay for it out of the stands, and it's, make sure you talk to your league and you have money in your pocket on all playoff games. All right. Moving down. Sportsmanship. So I'm not going to go through and read these in depth, but I will ask you to go ahead and read them. Please make sure you talk to your players, your other coaches, your spectators, anybody who voices or argues that with umpires. You're going to get ejected from these games, okay? Whether it's a coach, whether it's a player, or whether it's a fan sitting in the stands. So we've lost so many umpires because parents and coaches typically can't control their mouth, and it is 100% mostly on our coaches. So keep that in mind. If you wonder why you have a junior umpire, it's because coaches can't stop screaming about the umpires. And now we got crap little kids doing the umpiring because we don't have any adults left. So that's why we have kid umpires. So try to be nice to them. Be really nice to the season patched umpires when you get them. That way you don't have we don't lose any more. So the other thing that we want to make sure is that we expect and encourage these kids to chant, get loud, cheering for their teammates, doing all these fun things. The chants can't be negative towards the other team. They can be positive towards your team, but not negative towards the other team. And then most importantly, the moment a pitcher starts his windup, all that noise has to stop. Okay. So you can't have players screaming through another pitcher's windup or any of those things. That's all bad sportsmanship. An umpire is going to call you out on. So if you have issues with the umpires, let your local director know. They'll bring it to the MAC board and we'll try to get that resolved. Just let whatever go at the field, because there's not really much you can do, and then just figure out what you need to do, and then come back and we'll try to get it resolved for the next time. All right, some general stuff on field information. Make sure you understand the safety rules of the field, or the rules in general of the field you are visiting. Their rules, regardless of MAC or local rules, take precedent. This was really an old rule that we kind of left this in here post-COVID years. The rule was basically, if some town has a special rule like masks, which nobody has anymore, but let's say a town did have that type of rule, you would have to abide by it or you wouldn't be allowed to play. So just keep that in mind, even if your local town doesn't have that safety rule. The next one is very important. Almost all the fields do not allow dogs. Tell your parents now to leave the dogs at home. Just don't bring them to practices. Don't bring them to games. It will save you a lot of headache, I promise. So we're getting more and more strict about this. And the way it's now handled, if a dog or anything else that's illegal shows up or happens at the game, the umpires are now instructed to put the game on hold until the offense has been resolved. So if someone brought a dog and the dog is there, the game's going to get put on hold until that dog is taken away. So just keep that in mind. And when the game gets put on pause and everyone's sitting there waiting, that's going to be why. So we've decided to go that direction instead of calling the police and having them enforce the rule, because that's always leads to worse things. So we just put the game on hold, and it works pretty well. Parents tend to move pretty quickly and get their dogs out of there after that. General things: no smoking, no vaping, no chewing tobacco or drug use, no alcohol, any of the fields. None of that's going to ever be allowed. And then just lastly, treat all the fields as if they're your own. So if you travel to another town, make sure you clean up the dugout before you leave. Make sure you clean up the spectator area where your fans were sitting. You know, we've seen so many times where visiting teams trash dugouts and just leave all their trash there. And the parents leave all their trash all over the ground. Make sure you take care of this stuff. You know, it's, you know, all these fields are run by volunteers. Someone's got to clean up after everybody. So pick up after yourselves before you leave that field. Make your kids do it. Make the players clean up the dugout. That's what responsibility they should be getting. So definitely take advantage of do that. All right, I'm going to do a walkthrough on the website now, and we'll go through some of the pieces that are important, how to do scoring, pitch counts, and how to do game reschedules. All right, 1 second to switch. All right, so this is the Mac League website. If you do not know the URL, it is macleague.org. You should all have received an invite to this website for your team. If you did not get that invite, you will not be able to enter scores, make changes to your schedule, put in pitch counts. It's critical that you do that. So check your email for that invite. Everybody should have gotten one. If you don't see it in your email, there's probably 100% chance it's sitting in your junk mailbox. This is a very, very common place for these invites to end up. So if you didn't see it and you're wondering where it is, go look in your junk mailbox. It's probably sitting there. All right, so let's walk through the website for a little bit. This will be the landing page here. The first thing I'm going to want to show you is if you click on About, first thing I'm going to show is about our facilities. If you click on this guy here, this is going to show you every field in our program and a link to their address. And if you hover over it and click these links, that will bring you right into Google Maps. That will get you all the directions you need to every single field that's out there. If there's anything missing or incorrect, please let me know. Important dates. These are all of the dates about our season and all the dates that operate, how everything is scheduled. All the summer dates are already out here. All the fall dates are already out here. Feel free to go out and look at anything and plan the rest of your year if you're planning on playing baseball further into the year. Wall of Fame, I like to just show this just because I think it's cool that we keep track of this now. If you come out here, you'll always be able to see who won all of our programs over at least through the last few years. So this is a great way to keep and acknowledge our former winners. All right, as we move over from About, I'm going to jump over to Resources. So first thing you see on here is Operating Guidelines. This is the general operating procedures for the Mac League. This is stuff you don't typically have to worry about. The general rules, these are the rules that I had mentioned earlier that are more specific for scheduling and stuff like that, timing and all those things. These aren't typically stuff that you need at the field. Minors, these are all of the very specific rules that are about the minors program. As you look in here, anything you see that is red, that has been updated somewhere within the past year. If you see it in blue, that means it's changed from the previous division. So this would be something that's different from, say, the previous division. So keep an eye out on the red stuff. These are where all of your things that have changed. So if you notice some of these, the dates in some of these last year, this is June of last year, May of last year, May of last year, May of last year. Why do these have dates that are from May of last year? Because these were all in-season rule clarifications. And when we put new ones on for this year, they'll follow the same format. So just keep that in mind. So you'll see everything in here that you need to keep track of. I would strongly recommend that you read these rules very thoroughly and make sure you understand everything in it. I'm going to jump down to playoff rules, since there are some things in here that are important to note. So forfeits, we do not have the concept of forfeit lost. So all forfeits are going to be 0 points. Okay, the website system that we use does not give us that option to record a forfeit loss. So everything is just all forfeits are 0 points for both teams, regarding if you're the team that forfeited or not. Moving down head to head, we did add some more tiebreakers in here. So this is one whereas if two teams are tied by points, if more than two teams are tied by points, unless the team is undefeated against the other teams, this metric is just skipped. And then if the total number of games played is equal, the total number of runs will be used, and the number of games played is unequal. If the number of games played is, I can do this, I swear. If the number of games played is equal, then the total number of runs will be used. If the total number of games is unequal, the average number of runs will be used. And those are your tiebreakers. These next ones are important. Once the final seedings are announced, they are going to be final regardless of any errors. Okay. If there's an error determined post-release, the MAC board can be brought to the MAC board's attention, and only if there's a majority vote to make a change will any change get fixed. Even if there's something blatantly wrong, it will only get fixed if the board goes ahead and decides to do that. So keep that in mind. So this is kind of, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but this is more specifically for the playoffs. Once the playoff schedule has been released by the league, if you cannot field enough players, you can request a coach of the opposing team to move your game to a date prior to the next date released by the league. It will not give you any benefit for your pitch count rules, and they won't be adjusted, and no other games will get moved. So you need to account for that. If both coaches do not agree to that new date, then it's going to stick with the original date. And if you can't make it, you're going to forfeit. I will tell you the schedule will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So if you can't do Monday, that you have Tuesday as your makeup day. So because there's going to be a game on Wednesday, and if you use all your good pitchers on Tuesday, you've got no pitchers on Wednesday. So keep in mind, like, that's why I really tell people, block off the 2 weeks for the playoffs. So make sure everyone knows they need to be there. If you look at your own personal schedules, you know when the playoffs are going to be, make sure you're available, because it's almost impossible, especially in minors, to move anything around. Okay.
Hey, Keith.
Yeah.
Do the pitch counts reset going into the playoffs?
Yes. So they reset.
Okay.
So if you have to play on Sunday, they will completely reset for Monday when the playoffs start. Yep. So yeah, you'll get a fresh start going into that game. Yep. The last big note here: if a team forfeits a game less than 48 hours prior to the scheduled start, the bracket will proceed as planned. If the team forfeits more than 48 hours in advance, the MAC board, again by majority vote, will determine if a reseed should happen. We had some problems last year in one of the other divisions where teams forfeited, and then people were saying we should reseed because that team, now they're playing tougher teams that are not available, and lower seeded teams got moved up freely, and we can't play that game. And we're going to do the best we can with it, but these are the rules that we're going to have, and everything would be by votes of the board. All right, those are the only special things I'm going to call out on the playoffs. Last thing to note here is the coaches meetings. So this meeting that you're in right now is being recorded. It, along with the presentation I did earlier, is going to be on this page. So you can already see we did the rookies. So the 2026 stuff is up here. Right now, this still has the 2025 meeting on it. I will update this with this meeting once it finishes recording. You can see I already put the PDF up here for the presentation I did earlier. So you can always go here if you want to see everything that I presented. And that's how you can get that. Up at the top, you'll always be able to see the schedule. You can pick whatever date, say the 27th, you'll be able to see all the games. You can go see whatever day you want. And now clicking in here, you're going to be able to see all of the teams. So you'll be able to see all of your teams here in these 4 columns for the minors. So this year we have 4 divisions for minors in 2 different conferences. I'm actually going to go to one of, I created a couple of test teams so that I can show you how some of this works. Okay. So this is a test team that I have, and you can see right now, it's going to show you by default your week ahead. You know, there's a game technically today, and there's a game coming up on Monday. And then you can see that you'll see down here, the coach's name is listed. If your team does not show the coach's name here or the assistant coach or any of those things, that means you did not accept your invite. So make sure, and if you don't see it, your name here, you didn't accept the invite. If you just see your name here and not your contact information, that's because you didn't pick the right privacy settings. And in that case, you want to click on settings, change your privacy settings to public, email, and phone. It's really important you make sure that that's the privacy setting you use. If you don't pick that particular setting, none of the other coaches in the program are going to be able to get in touch with you. That means if someone needs to reschedule a game with you, or they need to call you that day of a game to work on a reschedule or weather problems, they won't be able to find your information, and you won't be able to put in any. So make sure you keep everything up to date. Your roster. If you click on your roster, you will be able to see all the players on your team. If your roster is not there, that means that your league didn't give me the roster yet. They might have just given it. I might not have put it in yet, but all of them should already be in there. If your roster is not correct, players sometimes get added and removed. Do not hit this button up here and try to add players on your own. This is going to cause all sorts of problems with the pitch count system. So send me an email and I will go ahead and fix the roster for you. So just send me an email and I will get to it as fast as I can to get your roster corrected. You can hit this edit button, and I do recommend this one. And you can come in here and put in the jersey numbers of all of your players. Okay, this is always a great idea because it makes your life a lot easier when you're trying to put in pitch counts, when you have everybody can see the players' numbers. So I strongly recommend you do that. I'm going to skip games for a second. I'm going to jump right to PitchSmart. Now I'll come back to PitchSmart because I'm going to do that. Team contacts. This will be irrelevant because you don't have your players in here. You should have lead contacts in here. This is going to show you all the contact information for all the other coaches that have put in their contact information. Staff. Should show you all of your coaches. You as the head coach, you can always hit this plus staff member button and say you want to add one of your assistant coaches, put their email address in, pick whatever role, it doesn't really matter. All of them give them the permissions. By adding in your assistant coaches, this gives them the ability to add scores, add pitch counts, do schedule requests, all that stuff, just like you. So unless you want to be the only person that's able to do all that stuff, add the other people in. I recommend adding others in because it'll save you all sorts of headaches. All right, so let's go to games. Great. All right, so you can see I got a couple of games here, and this game technically started at 6 o'clock. This game is over. So first thing I'm gonna do is I got a score button here. So This works great on your phone, and it works great on the website. When your game is done, you come in here and you will not see this until this time has passed. So you can see like there's no score button on these ones because those games haven't started yet. Now that this time has passed, the score button's here. You can hit score, come in here, and put the score of the game. Let's just say the game was 5-4. I'm going to save the score. The next screen you're going to see is looking for pitch counts. So now you're going to come in, you're going to see all of your players here. You're going to put in how many pitches each one of them did. All right, this player did 35 pitches. This player did 7. This one did 15. And, this one did, 60. Okay, I'm going to save my pitch counts. That's all you have to do to enter your pitch counts. Okay. If you come out here, and let's say you're the opposing team, or you come out here to put your score.
Ready?
All right. If you come out here and the score is already there, you'll see the pitch count button. That means you don't have to put the score in, but you still have to come in and put your pitch counts in. So whichever coach gets there first puts in the score, and then both coaches need to come in and put their pitch counts in. Okay. If you need to adjust them, you can come back in here and fix them again. Okay. Once the pitch counts are in the system, you can come here to Pitch Smart over here on the left, and it's going to tell you what the status is of your players and when they can next pitch. So depending on this is a bigger division, so this test one, so they can go up to 30 days pitches with no rest. So that's why you see this pitcher, this pitcher only did 7, this pitcher did 15, so they're eligible immediately to pitch the next day. These two players are ineligible to pitch. Their next game that they would be eligible to pitch, because of where the distance of this game is 4 games out, which is why it's saying their next eligible game is 4 days out. So they're currently ineligible to pitch until then. Okay, so their daily their status for that day is ineligible, and they'll be eligible on this next game. Okay, so you can see this. The other teams can see it for your team as well. So keep that in mind that you put this stuff accurate. I will say make sure you're honest when you put in these pitch counts, because the other team can see them when they put theirs in. If you don't put the numbers that match their numbers, they're going to flag it, and someone is going to have to show their game changer results on who's got the pitch counts. And then we're going to take those and we're going to update them automatically. So just keep that in mind. Any questions on the putting in scores or pitch counts? It's a relatively simple process, so hopefully it's pretty well done there. The next thing I want to show is inside of games is how do you reschedule a game. So let's say this game on April 20th, we want to reschedule. I'm going to hit the reschedule button. And the reason for request, you can pick whatever here. It doesn't matter. This is just a data point. And then change type. This is going to matter. The bottom one is cancel. You should never use this option. We don't cancel games. We just reschedule them. Everybody should be playing 12 games by the end of the season. So never cancel a game. If you're postponing a game, say the game got postponed because of weather, you can put in postpone, and then you can put in a reschedule request later. The more common one is reschedule. When you click on this guy, click on reschedule, type in whatever you want for an explanation, put in the proposed date of the change, whatever time it's going to be, the duration of the game, and whatever field it's going to be at, and then hit save. Once you do this, this does not automatically change the game. Once you hit the save button, an email is now going to be sent to the head coach of the other team, and the other coach has to approve the request that you just submitted. So that means if you want to make sure that you and the other coach are in sync before you put this request in, and don't just randomly send them stuff with trying to change games. So talk to them first. That way, because they have to go in and accept it. Once they accept it, then you'll be able to go. Then once they accept it, I'll get an email and I'll go through and process and execute the change. And then it will get automatically updated on the schedule. So just keep in mind that just because you put a reschedule request in, until it's executed, it's not valid. So just like if I hit save here, if I change this, I save it, So if you notice, it did not change this to 421. It's still 420 until both coaches agree on it and execute it. Okay. All right. Last thing is there any questions on scheduling? No? Great. All right. Next section is divisions. So here, divisions, this is where you see the standings and stuff along those lines. So let me just come in. I'm going to go to one of these divisions. The default landing page here, you're going to see all the different programs, all the different teams that are out there and their current standings. If there's any games scheduled today, you'll see them here as well. You can click on scoreboard here on the left, and you'll be able to see, the first games are on April 28th, and there's 2 games on that day. That Thursday, there's 1 game. That Saturday, there's 3 games. These are what's in for this division. Okay. You can also click the schedule here, and you'll be able to see the full schedule. The scoreboard will show you the score. So if you're all the way out here, say it's May 19th, you can go back and you can look at any one of the days and see the individual scores of those games. Okay. You can come in and go to standings. Standings is going to give you the expanded view of the entire thing about where everybody stands, points, runs for, runs against, all those different metrics that are important. Be very cautious looking at this because this does not show points. Our seedings go by points. So just because it's in this order on this does not necessarily match up to the seedings. So just keep that in mind that, yeah, you might be in the top spot here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're got the number 1 seed. So check for how the points work to be able to figure that out. Once players start putting in their pitch counts, you'll be able to see details of that stuff in here and be able to filter in on it. As we get towards the playoffs, this section here for brackets, you'll be able to come in here and you'll be able to see the full bracket, where the games are. And when you go to score your games, you'll actually come into the bracket to score and put in your pitch counts. So that's how the playoffs get scored. All right, that is the runaround on the website. I've gone through everything. Now I'm going to open it up for questions, and what can I answer for everybody?
Got 2 questions.
Fire away.
First is the bat rule. What happens if we catch a team, not saying they're mean to, but a player using a USSA bat? What does that mean for the game?
So if you catch it while they're at bat, the bat gets removed and gets replaced. If you catch it after the fact, the bat gets pulled out. That's it. So there's no going back and eliminating stuff.
And second question, for the pitch count towards the playoffs, so technically I play my last game on June 6th, right before the playoffs. So I can technically pitch my best pitcher all 75 pitches, and then he's all set to go on Monday?
Technically, yes. So just
Okay.
remember the goal of pitch counts is to not kill your kids. If you throw them 75 pitches and then want them to pitch the next day, that's just brutal. That's cruel. Don't do that. But technically, you can do that. So yes, you can. You shouldn't, but you can. Any other questions?
When you reschedule a game, I didn't see anything on there about the umpires. Does that automatically get changed, or do you have to make other phone calls?
Those you have to make other phone calls. So you want to reach out to your local town's umpire coordinator and make sure you work with them to get your game rescheduled. Paul, in our program, you would log into a signer and make that and update the game there. That's how our umpires get notified.
Okay, and you would do that after you would get an agreement between 2 teams?
Yeah, you can go out there, or you can message Mike. You should go out there and do it, or you can message Mike LeClaire, and he'll help you with that.
No problem.
What else? Anybody else got questions? Come on, Miners always has a lot of questions. This is always the longest meeting of the week. All right. So I'm glad that hopefully means that you got all the information that you needed. I will post up the recording as soon as it's available. And hopefully, if you guys have any further questions, you can email me, and I'll be able to help you out, get through anything. But other than that, have a great season. I will probably see you all at the field at some point. So best of luck. Play ball. Take care all. Bye.
Thanks, Keith.